plain sight for over 500 years. Look at this face. It's been reduced to a pedestal for a predator. A face that ends abruptly. The torso is gone. The head stands on its own feet. Only 2 weathered boots remain. In the vocabulary of the grotesque, this is a gryllus, a creature hollowing out the human form until nothing remains but a head and the limbs required to carry out its sins. By removing the chest, the artist removes the heart and the lungs. There is no breath of life here, only a brain and the movement of the street. But look higher. On top of the monastic habit, a nest of dead twigs. Inside sits an owl, the medieval ambassador of darkness, watching, waiting, unblinking. The boots mean movement. They drag the sacred into the filth of the street. The nest means permanence. The rot has moved in and made itself at home. It's a haunting little portrait, isn't it? A masterpiece of the grotesque. But there's a secret I've been keeping from you. This isn't the painting. In fact, if you were standing in the gallery, you might walk right past this creature without ever seeing it. Because this entire nightmare is tucked away in a tiny corner of a massive 3-panel triptych. This is the Hermit Saints by none other than Hieronymus Bosch. And if this is what he puts in the corners, imagine what's waiting for us in the center. This is where the story gets even darker. This triptych isn't just a map of spiritual isolation. It is a physical survivor of a real-world catastrophe. To understand this triptych, we have to look at its physical scars. This work, painted on Baltic oak around 1493, a date confirmed by modern dendrochronology, has lived a violent life. In the late 18th century, while housed in the Doge's palace in Venice, it was nearly lost forever. A fire broke out, a literal echo of the infernos Bosch loved to paint, and the heat was so intense it warped the wood and blistered the pigment. The central panel, featuring Saint Jerome, bore the brunt of the damage. During a heavy-handed restoration in the 19th century, the sky, the landscape, and the saint's head were largely repainted. It wasn't until the Bosch Research and Conservation Project, BRCP, used infrared reflectography in 2015 that we finally saw the ghost of Bosch's original underdrawing beneath the scorched surface.
In the period 2010-2016, no less than 12 out of a group of 25 paintings were treated. 6 out of those 12 restorations were made possible by the BRCP.
For centuries, these 3 panels have been a source of obsession for historians and occultists alike. It is believed the work belonged to the illustrious Cardinal Domenico Grimani, a Venetian powerhouse who collected Bosch's drolleries when the rest of the art world was still obsessed with the perfect proportions of the Italians. While Leonardo da Vinci was mapping the beauty of the human body, Bosch was mapping the rot of the human spirit. The painting is a triad of spiritual endurance. It features 3 legendary hermit saints who fled the corruption of society, only to find that the wilderness was just as crowded with demons as the cities they left behind. In the left panel, we find Saint Anthony, the desert father, besieged by the grotesque. The central panel shows Saint Jerome kneeling in a graveyard of pagan idols. Finally, the right panel features Saint Giles, the protector, seeking refuge in a lonely cave. On the surface, it's a study of quiet devotion. But as we're about to see, Bosch's version of quiet is louder and more violent than anyone else's. Bosch didn't just paint monsters for the sake of horror. He was a member of the Brotherhood of Our Lady, a conservative religious group. His work is a visual sermon. Every chimera, the name for these hybrid monsters, is a specific word in his vocabulary. Historians like Matthias Ilsink and Jos Koldewey have argued that Bosch didn't paint a world that was crazy. He painted a world that was broken by sin. He didn't use expensive pigments like ultramarine. He used lead tin yellow and azurite, proving that even with a humble palette, you can paint the most terrifying corners of the human psyche. But enough history. The context is set, the fire is out, and the patient is on the table. We are going to peel back the varnish and look at every distorted limb and hidden demon. Let's dissect this painting with surgical precision, beginning with the nocturnal madness of the left panel.
At the base of the walking head, nature is dismantled and reassembled into a chitinous nightmare. To the right, a turtle-shelled chimera stands on spindly, jointed arthropod legs. From its rear, dead branches and peacock plumes, symbols of vanity and pride, erupt like dry veins. It is a walking contradiction, a creature of defense converted into a display of ego. Nearby, a standoff unfolds between two rats. The small black rodent is dwarfed by its partner, a white aristocrat of the gutter. Adorned with radial plumes and transparent membranous insect wings, this hybrid represents the unnatural elevation of the base. A demonic parody of a soul attempting flight while trapped in the body of a scavenger. To the right sits the scholar of the pit. Hunched in a chillingly human posture over a book, it wears a black cloak and a trailing liripipe, the uniform of a 15th century intellectual. Its anatomy is a horror of hybridization, retracted bird wings, powerful cockroach legs, and an elongated beak with a smaller bird perched on the tip. On its back hangs a hunting horn used to summon the dogs of hell. This is corrupted knowledge personified, an entity that uses scripture as a snare. Then we find the spoonbill. Stark and spectral white, it stands in long, human-like black boots. From its head, a heavy, drooping cowl hangs low over its face, while far behind, a sunburst of plumes radiates from its backside like a mocking, divine fan. Clamped in its wide beak, a lizard struggles in vain. Wearing the boots of men and this backborne halo of the holy, it is the predator in the pulpit, a creature that dons the fragmented uniform of the church to devour the weak. Higher up, the chaos thickens. Facing away from us is the cricket witch. It is a black, insectoid silhouette with splayed, skeletal hands and a shock of stringy white hair. Its wings are rigid, arthropod membranes speckled with mocking white dots, a chitinous anatomy hijacked by a creature of the dirt. Near it, a different kind of devotion. An old, bearded demon with skeletal claws hunches over a stone slab fixated on a book. He is the apostle of the void, studying a perverted liturgy. Sharing his ledge is a gryllus, a severed brown head with two spindly arms erupting directly from the temples. It has no torso, no heart, only a brain and the hands to execute its impulses. Then the air turns liquid. A grotesque fish hybrid floats mid-air, its maw filled with needle teeth. It possesses human hands, delicately pouring wine from a jug into a glass. A cloaked demon sits astride its back, directing this miracle. It is a chilling parody of the Eucharist. Instead of life-giving blood, it offers the cold, intoxicating rot of gluttony. Finally, we reach the dead tree. A hybrid demon perches in the scorched branches, hauling back a heavy shroud like a stage curtain. Behind this veil, the nightmare becomes theatrical. A pale, bare woman stands in the dark water, her body a beacon of lethal invitation. Beside her, a shadowy silhouette peeks from the folds of the cloth, watching the trap spring. They are all looking at someone. That someone is a solitary figure whose spiritual resolve is being dismantled by this orchestrated theatre of the flesh. The curtain is up, the wine is poured, and the demons are waiting for a single moment of weakness. That someone is Saint Anthony of Egypt, the father of Christian monasticism. He fled the corruption of society for the desert to find God, only to discover that the wilderness was a battlefield.
Look at his hands. He leans heavily on a tau-shaped cane, the traditional emblem of his order. In his right hand, he lowers a vessel into a dark, marshy pool. On the surface, it is a simple act of manual labor. But in Bosch's world, this is a combat maneuver. Anthony is quenching the fires, both the literal flames of the burning village in the distance and the metaphorical fires of the temptations surrounding him. The distant inferno is more than just scenery. It is a reference to St. Anthony's fire, or ergotism, a horrific medieval plague caused by fungus-infected rye. Victims felt as though their limbs were being consumed by invisible flames. Bosch turns this medical catastrophe into a spiritual one. The world is burning, and only the ascetic can provide the water. Most importantly, look at his eyes. They are cast downward, fixed on the water. He does not look at the pale devil queen behind the curtain. He does not look at the scholar demons or the fish hybrids. He refuses to acknowledge the theatre. In Bosch's more famous Triptych of the Temptation in Lisbon, Anthony is physically assaulted by a whirlwind of monsters, a chaotic descent I've already dissected in a separate video for those who want to see the saint at his breaking point. But here, in the Venice panel, the battle is internal. This is secluded devotion. It is the monastic ideal realized, resisting the diabolical not through a grand crusade, but through the quiet, humble armor of work and prayer. Resistance, Bosch suggests, isn't always a scream. Sometimes it is just the refusal to look up. But Anthony is only the beginning of this journey. The desert was just the first layer of isolation. To find the next stage of spiritual endurance, we must move from the marsh of the left panel into the graveyard of the central panel. Here, the atmosphere curdles. We enter the central panel, not a sanctuary, but a graveyard of forgotten civilizations. Here, the landscape itself is a corpse, a stagnant world where nature and architecture rot in unison. At the base, the ground refuses to be silent. In the lower middle, Bosch reveals the unblinking cruelty of the natural world, a Komodo-like reptile locked in a lethal struggle with a rodent. This is the lex talionis, the law of the jaw, where morality is absent and only the hunger of the beast remains. To the left, the debris of death lies scattered like litter. A bleached animal skeleton rests beside a bizarre organic pipe erupting from the earth, a literal vent for the underworld. A small, shadowy creature peeks into this tube, hinting at the subterranean corruption bubbling beneath the surface. Rising from this rot is a fractured pillar, the broken spine of a lost era. It is divided into two symbolic strata, a dark, speckled layer featuring a statue of a man praying fervently, representing the desperate, earthbound plea for salvation. Above, the tone shifts to the celestial. A ghostly blue sphere depicts the sun, moon, and stars, a representation of pagan astrology
and fate. To Bosch, this signifies a world governed by the deterministic movement of planets rather than the grace of God. These are the old bones of a world Christ came to dismantle. To the right, the architecture grows more ominous. A dark cellar entrance gapes like a mouth leading into the earth's bowels. Beside it, uneven, crumbling stairs ascend toward the center. These lead to the altar, which Bosch has provocatively designed as a repurposed Roman sarcophagus. It is a holy site built literally upon a tomb. The carvings on this sarcophagus serve as a ledger of vice and virtue. A man buries his face deep within a barrel of honey. This is a biting allegory for gluttony and the suffocating, sticky nature of worldly pleasure that eventually drowns the soul. Above the honey-eater, we see Judith beheading Holofernes. In the medieval mind, this was the victory of the soul over the flesh, and a typological precursor to the Virgin Mary defeating the devil. Opposite these scenes, a knight and a unicorn appear. The unicorn, a creature that could only be tamed by a virgin, stands as a stark, ivory symbol of purity amidst the surrounding decay.
And then there is the man himself. At the heart of this chaos sits Saint Jerome, the great intellectual of the Church, the man who synthesized the Hebrew and Greek scriptures into the Latin Vulgate, is stripped of his scholarly dignity. He looks less like a doctor of the Church and more like a starving survivor. Jerome kneels in a classic penitential pose, his emaciated frame draped in a coarse red tunic. In the 15th century, this habit of a penitent was a double-edged symbol. It mirrored the red of a cardinal's rank, but also the color of sacrificial blood. Note the galero, the wide-brimmed red hat of his high office, tossed into the dirt like refuse. Jerome has discarded the political power of the Church to embrace the raw pain of the cross. His right hand grips a jagged stone, which he uses to beat his bare chest. This is self-inflicted trauma, a physical shouting down of the carnal mind. Every strike of the stone is a rhythmic attempt to drown out the whispers of the pagan ruins surrounding him. His eyes are fixed with terrifying intensity on a small crucifix mounted on a simple, fragile stick. Jerome has physically separated himself from the evil world, climbing the stairs of a tomb to find a place where he can be alone with his suffering. Yet, in a final stroke of Boschian irony, the ruins of the corrupt past are the very things literally supporting his prayers. We leave the mortification of Jerome and enter the final sanctuary, the right panel. Now, I'm pausing here because a lot of you have commented on my previous videos asking where you can actually buy the pieces I'm dissecting. Because of that, I've launched viewcrypt.com. I've made sure this exact triptych is available there as a faithful reproduction, along with every other painting I've covered on this channel and more. I offer them in various sizes, from small to large, and in 3 different formats: a standard art print, a gallery canvas, or a fully framed canvas. You can click the highlighted product in the video to buy it directly, or visit viewcrypt.com. Now, back to the video. At the base, the ground is a ledger of decay. A bleached skull sits in the dirt, a classic vanitas symbol, a cold reminder that every hermit's journey ends in the same dust. Beside it, a stunted, wizened tree clings to the rock. A lizard scales the bark while smaller in the shadows, life refusing to vanish in this desolate wilderness. But look closer at the detritus. A fox's head and severed legs are scattered nearby, while a bird scavenges the remains. Even in peace, the world is a slaughterhouse. The panel is dominated by a jagged rock pinnacle, a vertical spine acting as a protective barrier for the hermitage. Unlike the fire-choked horizons of St. Anthony, the background here is pastoral, rolling meadows and dense woodland. But Bosch cannot help himself. Look at the tree in the midground. A bird hangs upside down from a branch. In this world, even the quiet moments are inverted and wrong. At the center of this silence is Saint Giles. He is crouched within the mouth of a cave, draped in a brown Benedictine habit. Despite the trauma of the scene, his face is a mask of stoic ease. A hunter's arrow pierces his chest. This is a direct reference to the Golden Legend. Giles intercepted an arrow intended for his companion, the female deer seated beside him. This deer, which sustained him with her milk during his retreat, represents the ultimate bond between the ascetic and the natural world. Above the deer, a mysterious scroll hangs in the air. This records the legend of King Carlo Martello, a man haunted by a sin so grave he could not confess it. As Giles prayed, an angel appeared with this scroll, listing the sin, only for the ink to miraculously vanish as the prayer took hold. Look at the dark window of the cave. A faint, ghostly figure peeks through the opening. This is the king himself, the hunter who discovered the saint by accident. The signature. Tucked into a small hollow in the rock near Giles's face, a tiny owl watches. It is Bosch's recurring autographic symbol, the silent observer that represents either the wisdom of the hermit or the lurking evil waiting for the sun to set. This panel is the most peaceful of the three, yet it is a masterpiece of surgical detail. It completes the cycle, from the external temptations of Antony to the internal penance of Jerome, and finally to the sacrificial grace of Giles.
But if you think this dissection is over because the panels are closed, you've missed the point of the knife. There is a final, invisible layer to this work, one that Bosch designed specifically for you. Scholars like Larry Silver have long argued that Bosch wasn't just illustrating ancient legends. He was participating in the Devotio Moderna, a radical 15th century religious movement that prioritized internal, personal reform over outward ritual. To Bosch, these three panels aren't just a map of the Egyptian desert or the Italian ruins. They are a map of the human psyche. As art historian Reindert Falkenberg suggests, Bosch's landscapes are meditative obstacles. He creates a world where the external environment is a direct projection of the internal state. The desert isn't empty, it's crowded with the things Antony tried to forget. The ruins aren't just stone, they are the old bones of Jerome's own pride. The Hermit Saints teaches us a terrifying truth that predates modern psychology by 4 centuries. Isolation is not a refuge, it is an amplifier. You can flee the filth of the street, but you cannot flee the walking head that lives inside your own skull. You can burn the world down, but you are still left standing in the ashes of your own desires. Bosch is showing us that when you strip away the noise of society, the silence that remains isn't peaceful, it's deafening. These saints didn't go into the wilderness to find God. They went there to have nowhere left to hide from themselves. Which leads me to you. We live in an age of infinite distraction, a digital street louder than anything Bosch could have imagined. We use that noise to drown out the monsters in our own corners. So, here is my challenge to you. If you were sent to a remote cabin for 1 month, no phone, no internet, no books, and no escape, what is the one addiction, the one habit, or the one dark thought you are terrified would finally catch up to you in the silence?
Because until you face that demon, you aren't a hermit. You're just a fugitive. Leave your answer in the comments. Let's see what's hiding in your woods.